Good evening, everyone. This is the call to order for City Council meeting Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we do have regrets from Councillor Vic, and Councillor Rudenberg is sitting in on a Winter Games meeting at this very moment, and she will join us as soon as she's able. And a special welcome to Mayor Simpson. Good to see you back. Now, we do have a couple of first of all, I want to recognize that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the LHTAKO Nation. And I'm now looking for a resolution for approval of the agenda, but before we have that resolution, there are a couple of late agenda attachments. K3 is an admin report regarding remedial action for Maple Park Mall, and K4 is an admin report titled City of Quesnel Housing Situation Table, and Director Turner will be reporting on that. So with that, I would look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Runge, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adoption of the regular minutes of January 30th. A motion, please. Councillor Goulet, Councillor McKelvey. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We don't have any presentations, and now we will move directly to our delegations section. And the first delegation is Help Seeker Technologies, Dr. Alina Turner, founder and CEO, and Gilliam Ma, manager of strategic services, and they're coming in by Zoom. So I see their company logo on the screen in front of me, so I'm presuming that they are live. There they are in true, well, I was going to say they're not in true flesh and blood reality, they're in virtual reality. So if you could take it away, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Alina Turner actually just joined us, so I'll turn the floor over to her.
Excellent. Hello, everybody, and really excited to be here joining you. Jill, do you mind dropping the sharing of the screen?
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing yours will be ready to rock. And thanks everybody for having us. We're joining you from Alberta. Hopefully you won't hold that too much against us. But just while Jillian pulls that up, I'll tell you the story that actually grew up in Prince George, so not too far away. So go Polarettes if anybody's from that neck of the woods. So actually hung out quite a bit in Quesnel too for some time during my youth. So not super unfamiliar with northern BC for sure. So a little bit about the Service and Housing Options Review, and it's great that Jillian's here as well, because she's been managing the project's actual coordination. But the context of this work was actually brought about by administration in response to again, noticing different trends emerging in the community and trying to be proactive and data-driven in terms of the response. So that's the context in which this project came about. There's a lot of value in these studies in terms of giving you a bit of a snapshot, and I think that's our next slide there, Jill. Go ahead and move us along. We only have 10 minutes with you guys, but the big thing for us was to support administration in understanding what's happening on the ground from a data perspective. It's one thing to have anecdotes and story, and that's really, really important. But when it comes to analyzing some of these trends from a data perspective, you can get some additional insights as well. And of course, the purpose of that is twofold. One, informing the municipality's practice in these areas and how community can come together to resolve complex social challenges. The second is also around how we might leverage some of this data for additional supports coming into Quesnel. So a lot of the data that we're presenting today is exactly what you would need for, let's say, a housing accelerator fund application with Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, or BC Housing making a business case for additional supportive housing, et cetera. So there's a additional value add to having some of this data in your back pocket for those opportunities. Next slide. So a couple of the approaches here that contextualize the study come from this idea of systems mapping and demand, understanding demand. So that's why the objectives here, they're in some ways they're in your own words. The community wanted to get a sense of the inventory of the supply. So what's actually happening when it comes to the social response? Who's doing what? Which is actually it seems like an obvious thing to request. Much tougher to accumulate in practice because there are so many moving parts in any community. Obviously, the need for understanding data-driven needs. So yes, there's qualitative insights that we were able to gather to add context, but primarily this piece was around data. So statistics, that was the value add that we brought as a data and technology company that focuses on complex social challenges. And then, of course, the supply-demand imbalance obviously gets us to understanding where some of those gaps are so that council can become informed of future opportunities and where this data can support you in meeting those gaps should you wish to pursue addressing those with community partners and government partners. Next one. So a couple of insights here, too. There's some work that we did, and I emphasized statistics and data as a core focus of this project. That does not preclude the importance of actual on-the-ground lived experience and stakeholder engagement with service providers, lived experience, and the public. So look at this as a phased approach. Look at the presentation here as the first component of a deeper analysis. It's by no means the end of what administration has in the works. And I know there's quite a few committees that have emerged and are emergent in community as well to take these issues on. So while we're going to have a data quantitative focus, that is going to be complemented by additional insights from these other engagement opportunities as well in current and / future phases. Next slide. Okay, so in terms of the value add here and what you can take away from this piece is to really understand that baseline of service and housing options in the community. So hopefully from looking at the report, and I know it's dense, but it's there as a resource. There's a sense of what the mental health, housing, inclusion, food security, et cetera, what those supports are in the community, and also understanding a little bit more about what those incoming demands might be so that we can understand where we need to focus in terms of future planning and future funding opportunities we might pursue. So by no means is the report the only thing that's in your back pocket. A lot of this data that you're looking at here is fed by a model, a data model that we developed and obviously in conversation with administration and from the insights of community partners and our own research in Quesnel to understand where we're at in terms of current demand and where demand might go. So you're looking at one iteration of the model. The model is meant to be a bit of a living data model. So just like the environment changes, let's say a national election happens, new funding comes in, these numbers might shift as well. So look at this as a living data model to help calibrate or understand how you might calibrate your local response to vulnerable populations challenges. You can see we broke this down in a relatively classic way of the at-risk population, those that might be experiencing extreme need, and then of course those that are experiencing that absolute homelessness to varying degrees. Ranging from the bottom of the pyramid is kind of your most complex needs. So there's less people there, but their needs are quite high. And then ranging upwards up the kind of population need pyramid, if you will. So that gives you a glimpse of it. It's really dynamic. If you're interested in data and technical analysis, we are happy to kind of fill your boots at any point here. This is where we like to nerd out. But just to give you a sense of what we're talking about in terms of numbers. So the other piece that we wanted to dig into further is now that we understand the inventory of what's in the community and we understand where the demand is, how do we calibrate? How do we respond? And so what you're looking at here is exactly that, is how might we calibrate the system locally so that we can meet that future demand. So we looked at up to 2028. You can spin the model up and say, I want to look at 2030. I want to actually look at different characteristics. Sorry, that's just the alarm telling me to hurry up. And we also broke this down by support type. So we picked these support types again from best practices and what we knew the community was prioritizing already, but same model could be applied to additional support types. If you wanted to take this exercise on for, let's say, food security or another domain that is an emerging challenge. This one was specific for vulnerable populations and the support types that they need, all the way from the at-risk to the chronic homelessness level. All right. Yeah, and just giving you again a snapshot, not for me to read it out loud, but just so that you know you have this type of information at your fingertips now. And I mean, you might not have it, but Tanya Turner has it, and no relation to me, by the way. It's another Turner, but not the same family. So you can see here where we wanted to capture the organization program capacity, how many folks are being serviced in that, and what population focus it has. We also have deeper data around geolocation. So if you wanted to look at service density or service gaps or service deserts, you have that data as well in your back pocket for future work. Next one. Yeah, and again, wanted to also give you a sense of some of the income ranges and some of the data that we were able to pull. This is Statistics Canada data, so there's some limitations here from your ability to infer what's happening currently. If you guys are interested, there are Kijiji data sets or Rent Faster data sets that can give you a better sense of what's happening in the rental market today. Either way, even having an understanding of those, how many households are earning under $5,000, right? What kind of income can they actually provide in terms of housing, and what's that gap in terms of the average monthly rent? So yes, the limitation here in terms of Census 2021 reliance, but gives you a sense of what numbers we're dealing with in the Quesnel context to start as a baseline for further analysis and making a business case for additional affordable housing supply locally. Next one. Okay. The other piece that we wanted to make the connection to here as well, and it's an interesting insight because we spend, Health Seeker spends a lot of time in the synthetic opioid, synthetic drug and gang-related trafficking data sets that are out there in BC, Alberta, and Ontario of late. One of the things that's particularly interesting here is you're one of the only communities, despite the numbers being concerning. Of course, the overall trend is still going up, but it is one of the only communities that we see in BC that's actually seeing some gains in this respect. So a point here that there are these layered barriers when it comes to housing, that it's not just a housing challenge, that there are health challenges and safety challenges as well that need to be considered. And these are layered, complex issues that you don't want to just deal with one aspect of the person's experience. We need to look at what's happening overall. So a couple of insights here as well, that we do have some considerations from a lived experience or frontline perspective, that there are gaps in terms of the complex mental health and substance use capacity and expertise that's happening locally. And there's some suggestions in the report as to what might be done to recruit this type of a skill set in Quesnel as well, because it's, again, something that all communities struggle with. And as they continue to grow, which Quesnel, I'm hoping is on that growth well-being trajectory as a community, and how do we recruit that right infrastructure locally to manage these complex needs that are arising. Okay. And then, of course, the overrepresentation of Indigenous populations and the community's vulnerable population goes, in some ways, goes without saying. As like I said, a former resident of Northern BC, I can definitely attest to this from a lived experience perspective, that this continues to be a major challenge. And as you can see, even in comparison to BC and Canada, your population is much higher and seems to be relatively stable compared to other communities where we actually have seen rises in urban Indigenous populations. At the same time, it's still 3 times the BC and Canada proportions as well, which again points to the need for cultural appropriate supports. You do have a great starting point in terms of your relationships with First Nations, and we've done some work with LHTAKO First Nation, for instance, and excellent initiatives to be developed to address next term. And piece of
You might want to check your audio. It's you're all broke up. Those of you in the gallery, we are working on this.
Ron, you may want to tell her we're not hearing her.
Oh, she knows that. Well, she's getting a text.
Jillian, can you hear us and can you speak?
yeah.
Yep, I can hear you guys just fine.
Okay, and we can hear you.
Oh, good.
So I'm not
Should
too
we-
sure what happened with Dr. Turner. Oh,
Can you guys hear me?
oh, yes.
Okay, good. Should I go back a couple slides? Where did you guys lose me?
No, we lost you as soon as Mayor Paull spoke.
Okay. Then I'll pick up on the housing strategy piece. I think I just have a couple more slides to wrap up. Okay. So one more thing around the housing strategy piece, and I don't want to belabor this need for supply. I know that Quesnel has applied for the Housing Accelerator Fund. I think most communities are still waiting outside of the major mid-large urban centers. But again, I encourage you to continue that effort. I think it's commendable and absolutely essential. Otherwise, there's only so much you can do without that housing capacity, affordable housing capacity to support vulnerable populations. We did model this piece out as well so that we can fully understand what that continuum needs to look like from early intervention all the way to that crisis response and the need for a coordinated system of care as well. So hopefully we're giving administration and community stakeholders enough meat to really dig into those community priorities and start implementing initiatives with support from the funding bodies that are relevant to each of these buckets of work. Next one. And again, it bears repeating as well that whatever we do, that Indigenous engagement and cultural competence and inclusion will absolutely have to be front and center. Otherwise, we know from research that these initiatives just don't have the same traction and don't have the same impact and results. At the end of the day, though, that complex and interconnected need of the community will need to have that similarly fulsome continuum and multiple strategies happening simultaneously to really tackle it. And again, the opportunity here is to start early, kind of not wait until you're in Edmonton with massive encampment challenges, but actually start now while you're still at a manageable population level to really tackle this from a preventative lens. And I think that's the next one is our last one. Yeah, and so how do we get there? Just to kind of sum it up for you, 5 general directions for your consideration. Whether these resonate or not, we'll look forward to your discussion. But again, that comprehensive implementation-oriented housing strategy, health and social services enhancement, not for the city to do, but for the city to be part of a collective response with obviously health system partners, cultural competence and inclusion, strengthening community engagement and collaboration, and systemic and structural changes. Again, these are the big pillars of work that are much beyond one municipality's effort, but it's something that the community can come around to further as a collective as well. So I look forward to your questions and insights, and sorry about the technical glitches there as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alina, and for that presentation, including the unscheduled technical intermission. It's good that we're back on the air again, so I will open up the floor to questions or comments from council. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Alina, for all your work. This is a very extensive report, and it's really got a lot of information in it. It's a lot more, obviously, than we can cover here with our time allotment, but we know how to get in touch with you, so that's great. I was just curious, the quotes that were on there, were those from locals, or were those ones that we use for the quotes that you had on the sidelines, or those quotes that you use from for all reports?
No. Everything's customized. So actually, one of our team members spent some time on the ground and had actually chatted with folks with lived experience and spent some time in the community. So that's where those have come in from. That's a great question, but no, it's your community. However, again, I don't want to underemphasize how important more of that type of qualitative insight is, because the numbers are numbers, but the local context is absolutely critical. So we scratched the surface with our site visit because we don't want to do this quantitative work without any of that lived experience insight in any community. That's where you can find some really interesting stuff. We have found everything from cults, hidden cults, and stray cat problems that, that stuff would never show up in data, right? So you do need to continue that on the ground work. But I mean, Tanya's like so plugged in. So
yep. No, agreed 100%. No, thank you for that. I thought they were local because it really does hit on some of our challenges. And my wife's a nurse, so I understand some of what's going on in the hospital and the challenges there, especially with mental health and addictions, and we've got a lot of work to do. As far as the housing, I mean, as you're aware, with this study and talking with Tanya, there's been a lot of work done with BC Housing, and we're really happy about that, and we're moving forward with more projects, but it's nonstop. We just have to keep going. I'll be digging into this report as chair of the Housing Committee with Tanya a lot deeper. So I thank you very much for the information, and we're really going to work through it as the best we can.
Excellent, and congratulations on the new committee as well. Tanya shared some of the objectives, and it's very exciting. So that's great.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Elliott. Do I have Councillor Runge up next? Thank you.
Thanks for the report there. Dr. Lena Turner, I've got a couple questions with regards to the numbers on your, I guess it's a strategic analysis of community needs, that slide, and the one following that. So my first question is, because the numbers seem, with our population of about, 12,000, seem really, really high, starting out at 4924. Well, where did you pick those numbers up?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of points on that, because we do get that question quite a bit from communities, and the objective of this, and don't look at it as every single one of those folks is you're chronically homeless, super complex needs. What we're trying to understand is what's the gamut of risk. Right, so primary prevention all the way to tertiary prevention. Primary prevention is folks that might not even exhibit these vulnerabilities yet, but we know, right, there's a background of poverty, there's a background of low income housing, for instance, or intergenerational trauma, there's mental health, there's addiction. So that number is actually reflective of about 20% of your population, and where the numbers come from, you can actually take a peruse through the data sets in the report if you're very curious, but it's primarily from mental health and addiction studies, as well as poverty and core housing needs analyses. So we look at that. We don't stack them, otherwise your entire population would be at risk. We actually say, okay, we're making some assumptions here that there's going to be an overlap. So if you're in poverty, you're probably going to be in core housing need. If you have a mental health and addictions challenge, there's a higher preponderance, right, to be in low income. We make some of those assumptions to get to a lower number. But to your point, it still seems high. Well, that's because we want to understand what the entire gamut is so that we know where to target preventative efforts. So hopefully that big number, that should never come to the bottom of your triangle. That population, those kids, those families, you want to keep them as far away from the complex needs system as possible through preventative interventions, food security programs, school intervention programs, all of those good things. But you still need to know that population is out there. They might be seniors that are, being taken advantage of. They might be folks that are one paycheck away from homelessness, that they don't even necessarily show up in your day-to-day. So that's what we're trying to capture with that number, is what's that gamut look like. As we go down that triangle, the risk and the visibility of the problem become much more obvious, so to speak, right? So they start showing up in the system data. For those that are at risk, you might see a truancy, for instance, or absenteeism in school, those types of stats. Those might give you a sense that they're at risk. So that's why the number is high, because it's aiming to represent that population and really focus your efforts towards prevention so that you're not showing up, in 20 years' time, that population is now in your chronic homeless population. And again, unfortunately, I've been in the system for 20 years, and I've seen exactly that trajectory. So we're trying to get ahead of it in this case with that analysis. Hopefully that answers the question, but I'm happy to continue.
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry. I understand the trajectory. I understand your funnel. That all actually makes sense. The numbers. What I'm trying to get at is where are these numbers coming from. So when I did a little bit of research prior to this, looking at StatsCan. I looked at our numbers from Quesnel. So I'm wondering, are you choosing Quesnel and surrounding area to get to your 4,900? That would, that makes more sense to me than, like, when I look at the 12th hour, 12 something, I think it was a low with regards to Quesnel, and then took the 21%. It got to a high number, a number that was still too high for my liking, but it was like at a 2,900, which then pulls everything down. So that's why I'm just trying to find out where, if I were to recreate this study for myself or look at data, where would I actually find that that data that you, because we've got a lot of numbers here, but I'm not, I'm unable to, collaborate them with other numbers. So I was just trying to figure out where are they coming from, because we do have an estimated number here, and that's, I guess, where my question was coming from.
Yeah, you know what? It might be a better use of everyone's time is to just share the entire data set with you guys. I think actually Tanya does have that. So then you can play around with it as well. If you're a data geek like we are, and it's a live model. So you might say, you know what, I don't necessarily want to consider that population. I actually don't consider that population to be at risk. I'm actually going to remove that from the model. It's a live dynamic model. So it takes into account, for instance, populations that come into the risk profile. They might stay in the system and they come out of the system again. So it's a relatively, I don't want to say it's complex, because you obviously, did a pretty good job dissecting it, but it's essentially looking at census data, projecting it into the future, right? Because we're looking at, that's another consideration for your analysis too, is we projected into the future. So we took 2021, but we looked at 2028. So that would explain your potentially why those numbers are different, because we actually tried to get at, well, where's Quesnel's going to be in 2028? Because your population is continuing to grow. So it shouldn't be the same as 2021. But having said that, the sandbox is yours, right? You can take that as part of our deliverables to you guys, and something that lives with your administration, and you can continue to use the model for other use cases as well, or other projects. So I don't know if that.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. And I do look forward for myself, actually, at looking at that data set. And then my second question flips over to the page on the 2028 requirements. And it might be my fault for not looking at the current state and adding to that. But you had so we have our supply, we have our demand on your side there with total spaces needed. Did we have any numbers that give us what our supply or our projected supply is with our new housing starts that we're looking at? Is that some of your data set also? Because if it is, that's fine. We don't need to discuss it anymore.
Yeah, so when we did the inventory, we looked at what's in play and what's in the pipeline, and then we tried to plot when the doors would open to occupancy, so that we could fill the gaps in between. There are, however, in all data models, and again, anybody that really wants to nerd out, like this is my bread and butter. So I'd love to get into this at some point. Maybe in the housing task force, it might be a good place for it. But you can actually look at things like performance and kind of positive outcomes. So for instance, lots of people might stay in your housing system for 5 to 10 years. Well, they kind of create a bottleneck there. Right. So, but if you create other opportunities for them to move on to faster, then you actually need a lot less capacity over time. However, do you control all of that? Probably not. BC Housing controls some of that. But there are ways that you can kind of look at it as like a DJ booth where you're spinning and you're kind of dialing and trying to figure out the best way to optimize your ecosystem. So you're looking at one scenario here that, we said, hey, let's put something in front of you guys. But the magic comes really in the analysis on an ongoing basis, because some of these units that you're talking about, okay, we are assuming they're going to come and they're going to open doors in 25 or in 26, et cetera. What if they don't, right? Or what if there's cost overruns and you can only produce, 20 instead of 50? That'll change your projections as well. So having that capacity in the municipality to do that type of systems planning work is going to be really essential moving forward from a data perspective as well. But that's just the nerd in me, because you opened the door for that question, Councillor. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Runge. Anyone else? I had 7 questions, but now I'm down to 4 or 5, because some of those questions were already answered in your reply to Councillor Runge. However, and I just want to say that I'm going to have to refer to your slides by title, like the strategic analysis of community needs. Even though you answered that, I would suggest that that number of 4,924 of people that are identified at risk, including mental health, addictions, and disabilities, really at today's population represents over half of our population. So wait a minute, I'm going to go to Director Turner.
Thank you, and I've just been trying to clarify this for a bit now. This is the regional population. This is not City of Quesnel proper.
Well, thank you. I'm very relieved to hear that. I thought that we were just talking about the city. Okay, so we'll move on to page 17, and this is our page number, and it's your current state. And are you on the same page, the current state? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 facilities where there's no data. And I'm just wondering why is there no data?
Great question, and it's not that there's no data that exists out there. We weren't necessarily able to get that data submitted to us for the purposes of this inventory. However, Ms. Turner can jump in here to add additional context as well. But again, we know the facilities exist. We know they have capacity, obviously, but we don't necessarily know exactly what that capacity looks like and how many folks are being serviced in those places. We were able to locate some public data to fill in some of these gaps. So to capture, for instance, we have an AI model that scrapes data where we don't have some of this local insight to fill in the gap. But that AI can only grab what's out there, what's available on the internet, unless we have that data from somewhere else. And in these cases, we did not. But again, I'll defer to Tanya to add more context if she so wishes.
Go ahead, Tanya.
Thank you. Yeah, this was something that was, something that we needed to put a little bit of extra effort into, and we did. It was identified early on with Help Seeker that there needed to be some additional work, and there was actually quite a few more holes in there in the data. Unfortunately, it's very hard to get a hold of some of these service providers and get some of these conversations happening. And I think the areas where there is missing data is just that they were not able to finally get a hold of those individuals. Obviously, knowing the community as well as we do, it's like very, very quick to fill in those holes.
Okay, to you, Tanya, will you continue pursuing that data? Because I'm wondering if you had that data, would it change in any way the outcomes of the report?
None of the missing data would be significant to change the outcomes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to page 19 in our agenda, where it's titled, "There are really two large barriers." And it says there that there are two large barriers. One is substance abuse or use, and mental health. And it sort of leaves the impression, or at least I got the impression, that the two were not connected. But I would suggest, I would say that they are connected both ways, in both directions, and one can lead to the other, and so indeed they are connected. That's just a comment, that's not a question. On our page 20, where it says most of our physicians group in Quesnel is not comfortable with complex mental health and substance use. And there's a comment, at least I'm reading here, that there's one physician, I think in particular, that is saying something about this. And I must say, and this is in no deference to the people affected, but I can understand that physician's discomfort, which is right up there with the discomfort of the many who must wait for hours on end for help while others are moved to the front of the line. Again, that's just a comment, and that's just, it really demonstrates the need for a fix for our system. And finally, when we go over to our page 26, and I think it's your last slide, how do we get there? And I can see that 1 through 5 is it's intended to be an order, a chronological order of actions, so to speak. But I would suggest that systemic and structural changes should be at the top of that list to sort of show that is number one, and that the other 4 steps are steps that would lead to systemic and structural changes. And I'll leave it at that. I'm not looking for an answer there. That's just a comment. Welcome, Councillor Rudenberg. We are now whole here. And so is there any further questions from council before we move on to the next delegation? Okay, well, thank you to the two of you. A good presentation. I think obviously with our housing committee, we've got a lot of work to do, and this will be a foundation piece for that work. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, our next delegation, I was under the impression that it was by Zoom, but we're happy to welcome Patti Gerhardi here from the Cariboo Chilcotin Coast Tourism Association, and she is the Destination and Experience Manager for the Gold Rush Trail North and Cariboo North. So without any further ado, I welcome you, Patti, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure to be here, Mr. Mayor, city councilors and staff, and former Mayor Bob Simpson. I'm thrilled to be here. The roads were great coming up from Williams Lake, so that made it a bonus, and it stayed light until after 5:15. So all positive things, and I hope I'm part of that positive part. It's been my thrill to work with many of you over the years and to continue to do that in my job as a destination and experience manager with the Cariboo Chilcotin Coast Tourism. I've worked in many different capacities with the organization since about 2014. And so during COVID, we had business advisors, and that was through the Tourism Resiliency Program. And we did so well and had so much meaningful context with our tourism businesses that my CEO, Amy Thacker, decided that we should continue this program and have destination experience managers who are devoted to a specific geographic area and the stakeholders and businesses within that. And it's expanded now. So we used to just look after the tourism businesses, and now we deal more with sharing what Cariboo Chilcotin Coast Tourism is and what our capabilities are. And we also have expanded tourism to be not only the tourism businesses, because we seldom deal with actual tourists, occasionally, but not a lot, but those of the community that support tourism businesses, and including municipalities and regional districts and all of the people that make up our whole community. And basically, they say the definition of tourism, that anybody who comes from more than 100 kilometers is a tourist coming into your community. And we've actually had your visitor center share that with us this year when there was a shortage of veterinarians in Prince George. And so people were coming to Quesnel to get veterinary help, have to be here for several hours. We're going to the visitor center saying, what can we do? So great feedback from them. We love to get that kind of data. So just to make it more personable, but I do want to share about our organization, the Cariboo Chilcotin Coast Tourism Association. We're a nonprofit, stakeholder-based regional destination management organization, and you'll hear the acronym DMO. Acronyms drive me crazy because sometimes I don't have a clue what they are, and so as sometimes our audience does either. So we try and spread it out, but in keeping with keeping things shorter, we'll do that this evening. We promote responsible tourism development, market the tourism products and experiences of the region, and support the regional film, motion picture, and creative industries. The CCCTA has operated in the region for 61 years, supporting our stakeholders. Reina, there, that worked beautifully. Our mission is we invite and welcome visitors who embrace, celebrate, and respect our vibrant destination, our heritage, people, and cultures, and we advance innovative, sustainable visitor economy solutions that increase business intelligence and performance so that our residents, local businesses, communities, and region thrive. Our mission, to conscientiously steward our region's tourism assets to support responsible growth of the sector, ensuring a responsible equilibrium between our social, cultural, economic, and natural environment while being inclusive of all the Cariboo-Chilcotin co-citizens. The CCC Partner Pledge. Our CCC team adds value to government by providing real-time industry information, timely, effective responses to opportunity, proactive guidance and counsel on potential challenges, and advancing insights on behalf of the visitor economy within our region. There's a picture of our staff here. So we have largely a staff of about 11, a lot of new people, 7, and we have one new been interviewed just this week, actually. One of our destination experience managers, Soren Christensen, who was the destination experience manager for the Gold Rush Trail South, has moved on to another interesting career, and so we are in the throes of hiring someone to replace him, pardon me. The destination experience managers I shared with you earlier is a new position. We're the first point of contact for our operators and partners in the region. The Cariboo-Chilcotin, or the Chilcotin-Ballacoola Valley and Outer Coast is represented by a lady by the name of Judith Call. The Gold Rush Trail South and Land with Hidden Waters, which is the Highway 24 fishing highway, as many of you may know it, is now pending. It was represented by Soren Christensen in the past. And the Gold Rush Trail North and the Cariboo is myself. We provide tools and resources for federal, provincial, regional partners to keep operators up to date and better able to succeed. Our current programs include destination development, emergency management, sustainability programs and biosphere certification, accessibility programs and assessments, annual funding, updating content about your communities, and the annual tourism summit and AGM, which we were pleased to have some of your staff there this year. Hopefully we'll entice all of you to come. So our regional partnership collaboration, relationship building and networking, advocating for tourism and tourism businesses, sharing impacts, successes in the region, reaching out for the feedback and concerns from local governments, and sharing opportunities to participate. Now, these couple of coming up slides about Q3, I'm just going to refer to some notes. I went in to speak with our marketing manager, Rodrigo Lamas, and he gave me the inside scoop on some of these numbers that make a little more sense to us, and I want to share those with you. So on these graphs are some particularly interesting information. For one thing, the 47,000 online referrals to stakeholders, all of this information is from April 1st last year to December 31st. So we have yet a quarter to go in this particular year. And what we are tracking here is how people learn about the CCCTA, the point of contact, and that it's shifting from social media to web. 47,000 was what was for the whole 2023, the first 3 quarters. Visitors who came to the website are the 576,000, whereas social media is at 1.6 million. As you can see down through the different categories, these are what we monitor, and we can monitor them fairly closely to almost to communities. We can't do it to business. That's coming though, so we are getting very specific data that we can share with you as we go through. And if there's any questions or more of this, I do want to share with you that the visitors who are largely coming from the US and Germany, and it's growing. The others are basically on hold from the States and from Europe, South America. Those are all about current so far. The 2024-2025 will be testing more in the UK and in Spanish markets. US customers right now have the biggest expenditure patterns. There is a viewer shift in what we see in free visits. So social media is what is classified as a free visit. It grew a double in size in the second quarter. In quarter three, it jumped from 6 to 12%. The awareness goals are, which we include events, downloadable travel guides, and sign-ups for newsletters, which are critically important. The increase from the web touch of 780,000 to social media of 1.8 million, and the conversion rate from the website is 27%, and conversion rate from social media is 26%. Conversion rate is the hits to the number of actual next contact, where they might become referrals, or we can send out to individual businesses. The newsletter is the first opportunity for people to sign up, all of that at no cost, and then they learn about our programs, to get the latest information and be aware of current programs, including upcoming deadlines with campaigns. Our print ads run early in the spring. The next ones coming out will be in March and will include the Milepost magazine, which I hope that you are aware of. It's an amazing tool. I've had the opportunity to go to Quartzsite, Arizona for 10 days and represent BC, Alberta, the Yukon, and Alaska. A million visitors come to that little community during that convention. It's amazing to see, and the Milepost is what we recommend if anybody's actually traveling. We also recommend that they take 3 months, so they spend a good month in BC, and particularly within this area. So, and the third-party ads in Vancouver will be with Global, Bell, Black Press, and the TV ads will be done with Global and Bell. So the regional marketing performance for the Gold Rush Trail and the Quesnel area. So the Gold Rush Trail, it does get a lot of attention. Quesnel is relatively new to the market, and we really are working hard to get more businesses signed up. That's how we get the hits, is on all of these tools, is to having more businesses sign up. I will share with you in just a bit who is actually signed up right now. It's not enough. Amy Reid has done a great job of getting the cities all their tourism entities signed up, and that's making a huge difference. These numbers include the Quesnel area. The Gold Rush Trail is the head of the curve for right now, excuse me, for across the averages, and it's with the help of the city of Quesnel. We hope to increase the referrals generated for the Gold Rush Trail and from the city businesses signing up to partner with the CCCTA. Sign up and become a partner with the CCCTA is at no charge. It's done through a partner form, either through the destination and experience managers or online. And once you become a partner, then we ask for you to share 3 high-quality images with our tourism marketing manager, and then they become featured on our Land Without Limits website, and that has global attention. The numbers are somewhat lower with an average conversion rate of 1.02%, which now, but we're working on to it's a baseline for us to move forward and to increase, and we hopefully will be able to do that by quarter. So I've got some pretty big goals here, and I know I can do it with the help of the people in this room today. Right now, the only businesses listed are Moose Meadow Farms, Troll Ski Resort, Hallis Lake, Quesnel RV Park, Quesnel Bike Rentals, and Roberts Roost RV Park and Campground. and they've been on through the whole time. So, which has been interesting because even though that they've changed ownership a couple times, they've always remained on top of it. The more partners invested, we can increase the dollars available to increase the campaign reach, impacts, and results. The three projects that were supported due to city efforts from the MRT funding directly for the city of Quesnel were the Explore Cariboo Consortium, BC Winter Games, City of Quesnel, and Vancouver Outdoor Adventure or Tourism Quesnel. I talked to Barkerville today, and they are also going to some of these shows. But that's direct funding from the MRT-DT that was applied to the city and the area. So that's basically my very quick presentation tonight. I wanted to get as much information to you in a very short time. There's all of my contact information there. The telephone number is 250-961-9667. I'm sorry, there's an error in that on the slide. And I don't keep conventional hours. I'm available to any of my stakeholders or any of you up to 11 o'clock at night and not before 6, please. So I actually have some people turned off so they don't call me during those other hours. They work in different time zones. But I recognize the value of being a small business owner, as I am one myself, and when office hours are available are not necessarily when you're available. So I'd like to throw the floor open and ask if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Patti. Well done. Do we have any questions from council? Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mayor Paull. Patti, thank you for the presentation. That was fantastic. I may have missed when you said that the annual Tourism Summit and AGM is coming up.
Well, did you get it in fall? Is that better? Okay, there. Technology. It's in the late fall, and we don't have a location yet. So normally we announce it at the AGM, but we did have an organization that had put in a bid, and now due to some very unfortunate circumstances, will not be able to follow through. So I know you guys have the games, but I'm going to come back to Quesnel and talk to you about it because I think it should be here. You have so many resources here in Quesnel, so many great businesses. I just think it would be lovely to have it here. Over COVID, it was very hard to have these meetings, of course, and so our first one was just a couple of years ago when we'd had a hiatus, and we had, I think, 35 people come. This last year we had 79, so it doubled, and it's my goal, hopefully, with your help, that we double it again. So the more, and that's economic, economic development to our communities, and we tend to shop and take advantage. But one of the things, nice things about Quesnel is that you have venues. You have that capability to host events and much more. And as I know that Amy's working on all of these things, we want to be there to help you. And we have some really great, talented people as resources to our organization as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation, Patti. You're right, it is early times for the CCCTA and the MRDT. The MRDT is working right now through Quesnel?
Okay, you have to push it twice? Is that a secret? So some of the businesses bought in, not all of them. So we're working on that. So hopefully we can encourage more.
Okay.
The MRDT, I don't know if you're all aware, is only collected from accommodators. So that's what funds all of these campaigns that we can do and the outreach. So hopefully we have more buy-in. I'm working on it, and I'll appreciate any of your help.
Do you know the numbers of the MRDT that has come from Quesnel so far, as far as money?
I don't.
You turned it off. You turned it off again.
Okay, sorry.
It's all good.
I'll get it. I don't, but I will ask Rodrigo for that information. I know we cannot tell you who, because it's like the provincial tax, and it's actually handled through the provincial sales tax organization. We can't tell you who collects it.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it just would be valuable if we were getting a presentation that was more specific to Quesnel. Like it's a huge region that you're working with, and I appreciate that for sure. But because we're in early days, it would be nice in the future presentations maybe to see how much funding is coming from our area into the MRDT, into CCCTA.
Okay, I will get the dollar figures because these figures are specifically for Quesnel. They don't include Barkerville or Wales.
Yeah,
Or
fair enough.
Glasgow.
But yeah, at 0.62% of what's happening with the content, there's work to do. But like I said, early days. Just on the web page, for example, and maybe I'm doing something wrong, but if you go to the search engine on the web page and you plug in Billy Barker Days, I can't seem to find anything that comes up.
Okay, now I have to, I realize
Now you got
the
it.
red light
Just
has
look
to
for the
come
red.
on.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, learn something new every day. That's my motto. So that's a great thing for us to be aware of. But I'm not sure if the Billy Barker Day Society is signed up. So I can get those numbers from them once they're signed up as partners.
Yeah,
So-
that's fair. I mean, but I think there's a lot of tourists in the world. If we could prove to Billy Barker Days that it's a valuable asset, right, and people are looking at it, it's just one of those highlights. It's the longest going free entertainment in BC.
Oh,
I think it's important.
it's
And
one of the
another
most
example,
remarkable.
yeah. Another example might be the Winter Games. I tried to search that, and it's a huge thing. You just mentioned it, and I'm not finding it on the page either.
Okay.
So these kind of things that are really, really important to Quesnel, it would be nice if we had that engagement and put onto the webpage so people could find it. And then I think you would get more people that were interested as well if we could show the value in advance.
Right. And I do know that, like, for instance, the Quesnel Classic Rodeo brings $3.82 million to the community, and that they have shared with us. So, but I get what you're saying, and especially with events. Events is something that's relatively new with the destination experience managers. We didn't do them before. We did, which is a bit mind-blowing. But the spectrum that we're covering now is much larger than the individual tourism businesses. So that's why we need more of us. So,
Thanks, Patti.
but I definitely will take your point about that. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. You must have been reading my mind because I had similar questions regarding MRDT and the website. So we'll move on. Oh, I'm going to go to Councillor Runge, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Rudenberg.
All right. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. And for me, it's always like, hey, how can we support it? And ultimately, maybe how can we get, maybe Amy on board too, so we can link up to the things that Quesnel's doing, so they show up on your site too, so that we're actually, enlarging our reach with all our sites. And then I think the other thing that would be nice, I think, is for the businesses that don't know, because historically we would have thought you would have to be in the accommodation industry, in the tourism, or specifically in the tourism end, but it looks like there's some movement towards other businesses too that just support that area. And I think I don't know how we get it out to our businesses in town to say, hey, this is there also. Like I'd like to see restaurants and all sorts of things, so that we're promoting them everywhere, so that when people come, they actually can get a quick overview. So if there's some way that the city can help, I mean, that I think has to be a little more specific, and most likely through Amy also. But yeah, thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you. Hi, Patti. So did I hear you correctly? You were talking about the marketing campaign and the consumer show funding. Is that money that's come from the MRDT?
So yes, MRDT funds all of these programs now.
Okay.
It didn't used to. It used to become from a segment from the provincial government, which we had to apply for now. So it can increase, if the more that we can increase the collection,
right?
The more we can increase.
Okay.
And
I think people need to understand that they've actually, like, some of that money has already started to flow back into the community as an example of those three pieces that you've given us. So I was a little astounded around the content piece that you've added here, and I understand that it's about people voluntarily signing up for that. So from your office, like, understanding that, you know, Mr. Reid is hair straight back with everything else that happens with council and economic development in our community, what type of outreach does your crew do to try and reach people who haven't signed up voluntarily for this particular piece?
due to the legislation currently in BC, we can't reach out to someone who hasn't reached out to us. And it's created all kinds of problems for us when we've wanted to give numbers to people when we can't. And because of that, but we do all kinds of campaigns across an area. Now, if somebody, I can drop into somebody and say, would you like to have travel guides as for your clients and customers? But I can't get into it unless I can open that door. And any that if you know and you want to share with me, that's fantastic, because that opens that door for me. So we don't want to fall into we can't fall into where we're going out soliciting, but we do put campaigns out where you see the TV ads and that, and social media has been incredible indoor to getting more into us. But any of the organizations or businesses that you want to share with me in this area or any of my colleagues, please don't hesitate. And the more we can do that, the more we increase. So.
Okay. So if I may, in some of your previous slides, you talked about providing real-time industry information. So I'm kind of curious how you gather that. Is that through Amy, or is that a piece that your crew does on their own?
So some of it comes from within, but also from Amy. So Amy actually is one person, but Amy and Mike work with quite a few members of our staff.
I see.
So, yeah,
okay, so but that information basically comes from our community. Like, it's not something that you go out and talk to industry about what's going on. It's sourced through the city?
No, we do both. Yeah,
okay.
Any channel that we can get it. And so once somebody has reached out to us, then I'm in constant contact with them. And they know that I can work on any kind of things. And we work with issues like natural resources impeding on tourism, any kind of announcements made by the provincial government that impact all the businesses in the area. And we've dealt with so many of those over the fires and the floods where they specifically say, don't come. When in fact, our businesses don't have smoke, don't have flooding going on. It may be on the way to get here. So I know that I've actually done some work with Amy a couple of years ago. We went to the Edmonton Sports Show and tried to get people to come to Quesnel specifically, but even to come down Highway 97. Mm-hmm. Such a tough sell, but we're working on all of those things. And with our targeted marketing campaigns, we're getting more. And with the numbers, and like from first quarter to second quarter, some of the numbers, they doubled. And that's just in 3 or 4 months. So hopefully this next quarter will be even better. And I'm anticipating, because of what my more involvement. So I've been involved in and around Quesnel for many years. Some of you have known me for a very long time, and I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce here. I've actually lived and worked in the area for a long time, so I have a good knowledge of the community, but you'll see me here once a week. And I don't care what day of the week it is. So invite me to things, share what's going on, good, bad, and ugly, because we have to deal with those too. And we don't want anybody to be doing it on their own. And so, but I do have a question back to you. We would like to come and share with you a couple of times a year, and we'd like to know how often. The next person who would like to come up and address you folks is our marketing manager, Rodrigo Lamas. So if we could come 2 or 3 times a year, we'd like to, but we also don't want to be, oh
Right.
no, here they come again kind of thing. So-
Well, and I'm thinking that's something that staff can probably work with you in trying
Yeah.
to set up. Sorry, I just had a page of questions here.
that's okay.
The Biosphere certification, that is specifically for the CCCTA. That's not about other businesses becoming certified. It's specifically,
No, it's all about.
Okay, 'cause I did look
individual-
that up. Okay.
All about individual businesses becoming sustainable and certified. And we do have a sustainability manager. That's Alexandra Shuba, and she is very enthusiastic and wants to hear from everybody.
okay.
So, yeah.
One last question around Indigenous tourism. How does that look in our Quesnel area?
Well,
Is that something that you've worked with or on? Or
Yes, I actually meet once a week with Cheryl Chapman, who's the ITBC Indigenous representative for this region. And so when Cheryl can't be there, I can be, and we share clients. So some of them, we both work with them on, and that's the luxury for Indigenous tourism. They get 2. So,
Okay,
So-
because I don't ever see much, in regards to that. So I'm just kind of curious where that has landed in and around Quesnel specific. So it's great that there's 2 of you working on it, but what's happening in and around Quesnel? Is there anything specific that's being worked on?
well, there is one really cool thing coming up, but I can't share it with you yet because
okay.
it's not mine to own. But I am
All right.
working on it, and so that's going to be really quite exciting. Because some of you know I have another business. Some of my clients are from here, and that includes some of the First Nations communities. We are working as CCCTA. We are working with the Nazca First Nations on their economic development and tourism initiative. We're hoping to getting them to market ready, and that's very exciting. They've got some really nice additions to their facilities out there, and again. There's one that's
Okay.
right in town that's
Well,
going to be
and
big.
I'm thinking of opportunities like when they hosted the bike competition that happened here, and I forget the date, but those kinds of opportunities, when I see that they're already happening in the community, so I'm wondering how they can tie in with the CCCTA.
Just
I have a
reach out.
billion other questions, but I will leave it at that, so
Okay.
thank you very
Well-
much for,
Lori, please get hold of me.
okay.
Okay, yeah, just get hold of me, because that's how I succeed too.
Okay,
I don't work on a commission basis.
thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got a couple of comments/questions, as long as there's no one else that needs to jump in. I go back a long way to the point that it was simply the CTA. I was on the board of directors when it was the Cariboo Tourism Association. And the reason that I was on the board of directors for the Cariboo Tourism Association was because, and it wasn't so much me, it was, I think, the then town of Quesnel, which I was a staff member and had the tourism file, that Quesnel, it seemed like Williams Lake was getting all the attention, and that's why I was there. And I'll help you out with the Indigenous file. I didn't see it anywhere in your presentation, and I was kind of expecting you to mention New Pathways to Gold when you were answering Councillor Rudenberg, because as you know, I'm a founding member of New Pathways. I've been there for 18 years, and New Pathways is a group who has a bylaw that says half of our directors have to be Indigenous and half non-Indigenous, so you know which side I'm on. But our focus is heritage and amenities and programs that are Indigenous focused and with a spotlight on tourism. And I got to say that the CCCTA is a valuable, long-time partner with New Pathways, and we've got several projects that we work on together. And so on behalf of New Pathways, I thank you for that, and I bring it out to sort of get the word out that we do have these partnerships, and a lot of them, in our case, have to do with Indigenous projects. So and I just wanted to say that on Friday, I actually had lunch with one of the CTA's former manager, and that's Jess Ketchum. And we were reminiscing about our days at CTA. So it's good to see that the triple CTA is still there and still plugging along. So any further questions? Okay, thank you, Patti. Well done, and we'll see you down the trail.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much, all of you, for allowing me to be here tonight.
Okay, so the next item of business is, well, we don't have any items arising from previous special closed meetings. We have no unfinished business, no committee reports, no council reports and discussion items, but we do have a number of city staff reports. And the first one is K1, Admin Report 33B/24, Bylaw Number 1956, City of Quesnel Zoning Amendment Bylaw 1956, Carson Avenue, Grace Inn, second reading. Director Turner, you're on.
Thank you, Council. Sorry, I never went and tabbed my pages as I usually do to make it a little bit quicker. The purpose of this report, as I'm finding the front of it, sorry, there's a bit more here than I was thinking there was. Thank you.
It's page,
Yes,
page 40 in your agenda package.
Yeah, 40, I'm there, sorry. Thank you very much, Mayor. The purpose of this is the consideration of the consultation report and second reading of the bylaw. On January 16th, Council considered and provided first reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 1956 to include supportive housing at 530 Carson Ave. BC Housing has now completed consultation and have provided the attached report. The report is to be received by Council prior to second reading, and that's why it's here, and I hope Council has had a chance to pursue, to read it and let me know if you have any questions. I'm not going to go, the rest of the report really does, again, lay out the process, and I won't go into that, but I'll just go into the recommendation. The Council receives BC Housing's consultation report regarding amending the zoning of Lot A, Block 42, Town of Quesnel, Plan EPP 79910, PID 030554942, and that Council provides second reading to City of Quesnel Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1956, 2024.
Okay, so we have the recommendation. Before I entertain a motion for the recommendation, are we at liberty now to ask questions regarding the community engagement summary report at this point?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions either with regard to the report that was just presented or the community engagement summary report? No? I have a question, and that is with regard to the, just a minute now, I'm on the wrong page here. One moment. I'm all fingers. With regard to the engagement overview, and apparently there were 8 members of the public that were in attendance. What was the public's consensus of that?
I would not say you could get a consensus from the public. If having sat or been in the meeting as well, my feeling was there was a large proponent of individuals that were generally supportive of the project that were at the meeting. They did have genuine questions about the process and the timelines about when things would be proceeding, things like that. But there, I would have to say there was nobody that provided any kind of real objections.
Okay, well, that indeed is good to hear. My second question, and this goes to page 45, where we're talking about the neighborhood letter. Is it contemplated that, that this would include a good neighbor agreement with the proponent?
Yes, BC Housing now just likes to call it their own name. It's now a CAC. I forget what the exact name of it is, but it's a very similar type of process and setup.
Okay, so if I see no, Councillor Runge.
Yeah, thank you. I wish we had more than 8 people there. It would be great if we could somehow get more public engagement there. With regards to the community letter that were sent to it, did we have, was that all fairly positive also, or do they share that with you, or is?
As far as I understand, and from their consultation report, there was really no communications back on the project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anything more? I just want to say that I think from the public perception, that having a 4:30 open house is a little bit of an awkward time. People are still at work, and I think it's only a 1-hour window. Am I talking about the right?
For the upcoming open house you're speaking?
Yeah, there's a public something or other at 4:30 in the afternoon, immediately preceding the public hearing.
Correct, and that's just one last engagement, actually. Remember, the virtual session was an evening session, and so there was that opportunity. We also did take opportunities to email and conversate with other members of the public to have direct conversations, so I don't know why they were not, I don't believe there was any of those emails were returned and any direct conversations booked, though.
Yeah, sure, and I can appreciate how difficult it is to sort of time and position everything. So I think we're ready to go to the recommendation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Runge, Councillor Rudenberg, they're the mover and the seconder. Is there any discussion? This is on second reading, am I right?
Correct.
Okay, no discussion, all in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, thank you for that. Now we go to Admin Report 41/24, Minerals North Legacy Funding, Manager Reid to report.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to gain Council's approval on the dispersal of surplus funds from the Minerals North Conference. So we have just over an $80,000 surplus from the Minerals North Conference that was held in Quesnel in 2023, and all of the credit for that goes to our event coordinator, Charlene Lawrence, and her amazing job in getting sponsorships. The Minerals North hosting agreement stipulates that at least 75% of any surplus should further the basic objectives of Minerals North, enabling a better understanding of or providing support for mineral industry activity throughout the entire region. The organizing committee discussed options and agreed that supporting education and skill building would have the biggest impact on our community, industry, and the region. Discussions with the College of New Caledonia have been underway for several months, and the following use of funds is proposed. There would be a purchase of new equipment, and through that, CNC would be able to run the Mineral Processing Operator Certificate Program. Some of the equipment could also be used to benefit the millwright program that already exists at CNC and just enhance that program. The Mineral Processing Operator Program is designed to provide a flexible framework to address the training needs of the mining industry. This certificate program includes classroom instruction, WorkSafe BC certification, Ministry of Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources education based on health, safety, and reclamation. The equipment would be housed at the Quesnel campus with a 16-week program offered here, but may also travel to other campuses from time to time to enhance regional opportunities. If Council approves this plan, it will be sent to the Minerals North Board for final approval before disbursement of funds, but we have had an initial conversation with their board, and this is going in the right direction. So the recommendation is that Quesnel City Council approves the disbursement of the Minerals North surplus funds to the College of New Caledonia for the purpose of purchasing equipment to be used for the Mineral Processing Operator Certificate Program at the Quesnel campus, and that Council authorizes the City Manager to enter into a donor agreement with the College of New Caledonia for this purpose once also approved by the Minerals North Board.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Moved Councillor Rudenberg, seconded. I presume we're moving in second to Councillor Runge. Any discussion? This is good news. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now we go to Admin Report 40B24, Maple Drive or Maple Park Mall, and this is a late agenda item, and I'm going to go to Director Turner for this report.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is, you've seen a first report on this at the last council meeting, obtaining council's authority to move forward with this process. This report does describe the recommendation to seek a remedial action order on 222 Maple Drive. That's 4 twos. I believe it said 3. In summary, Maple Park Mall is in a state of disrepair and is attracting nuisance and behavior activities. There is evidence that the site is being accessed by multiple persons, and theft, vandalism, and shelter are being are all occurring at the facility, making it a very dangerous situation. The city has been unable to contact the owner. The mortgage company on title also state that they have been unable to contact the owner. City emergency and bylaw staff have made numerous calls to this property, which are attached to this report, and continually advise it is in a deteriorating state. The report goes into detail regarding the background of where we are and the process. It's even a little bit more lengthy background than you originally had. Additional items were filled in that I'm not going to go into detail on the chronology. You've all had an opportunity to do that. We did seek, as I advised in the last council meeting, a company to give us a recommendation on how we could secure this building. We were provided with recommendations and a quote on how to do that. At this point, council staff is requesting that council seeks this remedial action order by way of the recommendation I'm going to read, and given that it's a very lengthy recommendation, I'll just start reading. And or would you like to go into any questions first?
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Runge.
Yeah, given that it's such a long recommendation, I guess two things. One, are we able to split that recommendation up? Or maybe I'll ask just some questions. The security personnel, would that be city security personnel, or would we be contracting out?
This, just to be very clear, this is a recommendation that is going to the owner to do these things. And this is not us doing this at this point. I believe I told you we have the option of doing actions following if nothing happens by the timeline stated. But this is for the property owner to complete these actions.
All right, I guess my question, I guess, goes to the financial implications. So currently they're pushed to the owner. That's how am I reading that correctly?
Absolutely.
All right, and then should the owner decide not to do something, and hopefully they do something, would this come back to us for a different, or would we be following the exact same recommendation?
We would be completing the actions as per, but not exactly. We wouldn't have to, for example, hire a security company. We could utilize our bylaw if we see fit. And
yeah, it was actually just a discussion of the cost. Should it fall back onto us? Is there any way that we can mitigate some of those costs with regards internally, if it's possible? That's really what the question was. But otherwise, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Oh, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. This is out in the public, and the people deserve to see this kind of a timeline and how much it's just being ignored. So it's going to go back to the owner that no one can track down.
hopefully he's able to be reached with this notice.
Yeah. Okay. So hypothetically, if we can't contact this individual, the cost potentially could come back to the city taxpayers. And then what's the next steps after securing the building? Do we have any idea what we might be able to do down the road?
So this report just addresses definitely contacting the owner, as you see in here, is a corporation. So we have to contact the corporation. So once we have, we will be issuing letters to that effect tomorrow. There'll be a timeline, which I placed in the recommendation here for them to request reconsideration or from council. If we don't get that, or if they don't begin works, then we can start works. If that answers your question. Does that fully answer it, Councillor Elliott?
It answers the first part, absolutely. But the second part is, with you and your team, has there been any discussion of if the owner of the corporation is not available, it potentially could come to us, but have you talked about the next stages for that mall after securing it? We're just happy that it's secure, or is there something that we could potentially do down the road?
We still don't own it. Just because we've taken these actions to secure it, we do not own it. So no, there has not been any further discussions, nor would it be appropriate to do so at this point.
Okay, agreed. And I thank you for that answer, because that's what's getting asked of me. So I appreciate that.
Okay, I'm going to go to Carrie.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, if we end up undertaking the work, we will invoice it to the property, so it will then go on the property taxes. So it's only if this went to tax sale and the city became the purchaser would we be incurring these costs. It will go against the property, so whoever pays the property tax will cover the cost.
Okay, Councillor Runge.
So I guess my question goes, like I said, I agree with this. It has to be done. We have this lag with regards to reaching the owner. Currently, those doors are open in the building. There's people going in and out of the building. Is there any onus on us legally to make sure that's closed? Because there's nothing? Okay, thank you.
And just to confirm, I have sought that opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I guess, is there any mitigation effort that we can do that's a low cost to get it at least a little closed, at least some of the big windows are broken, or is that not something that we would even engage in?
I mean, I guess that's being done all the time. There's been various attempts to close different things as it's gotten smashed out. This is what we feel if we're going to go to this event, if we're going to go to this matter, or if we're going to, remember, we're currently asking the owner to completely seal this building. We do have vacant building policy that also requires complete sealing of a building if it's vacant for these same purposes.
Thank you for that. And I will say that this appears to me to be the longest motion in Quesnel City Council history, but the reason that it's so lengthy is because it's legal and it has to be there. So is there any further? Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mayor. Tanya, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but how confident are you that you're going to be able to locate the owner?
Again, as I've said, the owner is a corporation. The corporation has a mailing address in BC. So as far as I'm aware, we'll work with the legal to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed before we do anything ourselves. But we will be seeking the corporation's legal address.
So I presume then that there's a statutory time period from when we attempt to notify the owner and we don't hear from the owner, that then at that time we can move ahead.
All those dates are laid out, and just as clearly as when we go through this, you'll hear it again. We are also expediting some of those time frames. Because of the dangers that we feel are there, although we have lengthened them even a little bit more than I'd like to do, just to give us the best chance at having the correspondence reach the owner.
Councillor Runge for a third time.
No, I just want to move the motion.
Oh, you're moving. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to be keeping count. Councillor Elliott, you're seconding that lengthy motion, although it's very, very necessary. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that, and a lot of hard work there, and good job so far. The next one is, again, from Director Turner, and this is City of Quesnel Housing Situation Table, Admin Report 42/24.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just correct it. It's the solutions table, the housing solutions table. Situation table is another table. The purpose is to obtain a resolution from council to appoint members to the housing solutions table. As of November 21st, regular council meeting, council did approve formation of the table as a select committee. Staff have undergone a process to reach out to the community to get individuals that are interested, put their names and or organizations forward. An information session was held December 13th and confirmed commitment of a variety of the community members you will see on the list. The goal of this steering committee will be to access a diverse range of expertise from organizations in the community about housing policies moving forward, and the vast number of housing legislative regulation and policy changes that we're going to have to consider here over the upcoming months. The recommendation is that council appoint the following to the City of Quesnel Select Committee Housing Solutions Table for a term to coincide with the term that expires December 31st, 2025. Chair, Councillor Elliott, would you like me to read them all out?
I don't think it's necessary to read all of them. They're all a matter of public record.
Yeah.
But
I don't need to hear myself, so.
Go ahead, Councillor Elliott. Oh, you moved the recommendation, and Councillor Runge is seconding the recommendation. Before we go with that, I noticed that, like for LHTAKO and NASCO, et cetera, it's just a representative, and I'm thinking a lot of people are named by their personal name as being associated with a certain entity. I'm wondering if there could be something in there that wouldn't necessitate, if someone was to leave that organization, that would necessitate coming back to council to appoint someone to fill that spot. And I'm just wondering if you could put something in there that says, or a representative.
Thank you. That's why we listed the the organizations first, because it's really the organizations that we're looking representation from. I think that can just be within the terms of reference of the table, could it not? Or do you need it in this resolution?
Go ahead, Councillor. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to go to Councillor Runge first, and then to Rhea.
I believe, like the Accessibility Committee, it should be in the resolution. I mean, I think council will have options later to deal with if there's any issues, I believe, like the Accessibility Committee has.
Okay, go ahead, Rhea.
I think the policy is actually can be interpreted differently, because I interpret the policy as when you're naming people, again, it would be the organization, because there's often going to be people that leave, or for instance, when we've dealt with Northern Health before, if the administrator isn't available, he may send a manager. So I think by restricting it to the individual, you're limiting your committee's ability to function. So I don't think it needs to be in the resolution. I take it from the appointment policy as the organization. Okay, so
I guess that begs the question, is why is the person named when it is just a matter of saying the XYZ organization? I'm just asking to try to think about what would happen if one of those representatives was to move on. Would that necessitate coming back to council for a new appointment to fill that vacancy with respect to that organization?
Thank you, and that's what I believe Rhea was stating there, that she doesn't feel it would be. You wouldn't have to do that at this point. The reason why we'd like to keep the names in there, though, we would like to make sure when we're talking to these individuals that we would like consistency with the individuals from each organization. We don't want people rotating through just because an individual may not have liked the last meeting. So we would ask for them to provide some consistency with their delegates.
Okay, I think, do we have a resolution on the table?
Yes.
And it's moved and seconded. All we need is a vote. No more discussion. I'm not saying no more discussion, please. There is no more discussion, right? Okay, so now I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Oh, we're bundling right along here. So the next one is the council information package, and I don't see that anyone has asked anything to be brought forward from that item. We have no correspondence under bylaws item, or bylaw number 1956 has already been dealt with. We have no new business. Information and question period. Number one, changes to upcoming council meeting. We don't have any changes. We don't have any changes to committee appointments. We don't have any announcements or events, but, or do we? No. Gallery questions. Are there any gallery questions tonight? I don't see anybody from the gallery coming forward, so I will now entertain a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Runge, seconded by Councillor Rudenberg. Sure. There we go. Okay, all in favor? Carried.